my J-Lo lip.
Did she do that?
And Selena.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Selena kind of did it, but J-Lo, like, definitely
Dramatized
exaggerated that. Lip quiver.
Hello and welcome back to the Empaths Anonymous podcast. I'm Christina.
I'm Danny.
And this week we are talking about a phenomenon. It is one of the biggest books on Book Talk. One of the biggest authors on Book Talk, too. We're talking about the movie It Ends With Us that we went and saw this past weekend because it just came into theaters. When you listen to it, we're going to give you a few weeks to really go see the movie before this episode comes out. It'll be out for 2 weeks or maybe 3.
Popular movie and also was a book first, so it's
Yeah.
don't necessarily need any spoiler trigger,
Right.
Not trigger warnings, but yes, trigger warnings.
Right.
Not spoiler alerts. Though.
Definitely needs a trigger warning. Yeah, because you can literally Google what happens because of the book.
Right.
Yeah.
You should definitely Google it before you go if you have no idea what we're talking about.
I was very excited for this movie. It is definitely a book that I don't think I've ever cried so hard at a book in my life. So,
A lot of tears. We'll get
So
into,
let's get into
it. Yeah, but first, what's in your cup, sister?
I just have water because I already finished our coffee. I got a coffee and then we ended up eating it there, so then I finished it. We are in a coffee burnout. I don't know. I'm just kind of getting tired of everything that is available to me in the area, which isn't much. Which is basically Better Buzz, Starbucks, or the Press.
Yeah, and we had an unfortunate Phil's experience yesterday, which has never really happened to me.
Ever.
At Phil's Coffee. Just like very different energies, I suppose, and different attitudes that weren't necessarily the most welcoming. And that's all I can say about that.
Which is weird because Phil's entire thing is about spreading kindness
Yeah.
and being friendly.
It was just like weird energies. We didn't go in like too late. I think it was still an hour and a half before they were going to close. There were people in there studying, working. So it could have just been a bad day for everybody in Phil's.
Yeah, the barista was definitely not feeling it, and I'm wondering if something happened with the manager or if somebody called out of work or something, or if she just is an unpleasant person. I don't know. That's always a possibility too. But yeah,
Imagine if all those things, all three things were combined.
right. If you are listening and you are a entrepreneur in the Temecula area, please open a new coffee shop because we're tired. I need something else.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily want a Dutch Bros. They could throw an Intaza over here. I wouldn't be mad at that.
Right. I want something where I can go inside and sit in there and work or study.
Oh, that would be an Intaza for sure.
I love Dutch Bros. Don't get me wrong. I do love a Dutch Bros. I have to get it half sweet because their stuff is so sweet. But I don't like that Dutch Bros don't have stores that you can sit in. They're all drive-thrus.
Yeah, no, it's not a good spot to be in.
Yeah. I would go there in Texas all the time because it was like I had one literally across the street. And so I would go on my way to work, which was nice because they're so fast.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking to sit at a coffee shop
And work.
and work,
Right.
yeah. I guess for the purpose of today, we just needed a coffee quick. Dutch Bros would have been a nice option. But they don't have food.
No.
They have muffin tops and they're gross. So,
Does not sound like any type of sustenance I want or need. Press is pretty reliable, but one of our 100 ideas of our hashtag Temecula Takeover. If we had $2 million, I'd open up a Phil's tomorrow. But the problem is they don't have $2 million
yeah.
to open up a Phil's tomorrow.
Yeah, that's another option. Does somebody want to be our angel investor?
Please. I don't want to share all my ideas. But I'm trying to get that co-working space going. Co-working childcare. I feel like that will pop off out here. Okay?
It really would.
Anyway, yeah, I had the same.
What if you start a Phil's, you also buy the space next to it, and then create like a doorway from one to another? So it's still a Phil's, but then you
Right.
have the childcare / co-working space next door. They can be connected and the same, but you're
Yeah.
still getting a Phil's.
The Phil's operations would have to approve that.
Oh, that's true.
Well, yes, you can franchise a Phil's. You would have to just ask them if you could Kool-Aid man your way through these.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Is that what he says?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Something like that. That'd be sick. As far as how you're showing up mentally, what's in your life cup?
I'm here.
Fair enough.
I'm here. I had a busy week, and while I loved everything that we did / I did, I'm also grateful that like I had a couple of rest days in there.
Yeah. To me, it felt like rest while still being involved in something. So what we ended up doing was very recharging. So even though we went to an event and we were social and we were on the road and things like that, I think being around that environment, being in that energy, what felt pretty grounding and like resetting. That doesn't take away from the tiredness, I think, though. After a while, you hit a point where you're like, ooh, I need to climb back into my shell for a day or so. Because then if you keep going, it's just like you're going to hit that wall, I think, sooner rather than later, you know?
Yeah. Which I hit my wall quickly, and that's okay.
I wouldn't even say quickly. It was just a lot stacked on top of each other.
It was. Yes, a lot in the short amount of time, which I'm grateful for. I think that this is the life that I've always dreamed of. I'm so blessed to be busy. Because there have been times in my life where I wasn't, and I was just like wishing that I had more going on for me in my life.
Right.
And now that I have it, and it's all really great things. It's not like I've been busy before with work, but I hated my job.
Right.
You know, so it's different from that.
It's a different feeling
about
it.
Yeah. This is nice, and I feel like I just have a lot happening. I'm starting group coaching. I'm back in therapy. We're starting new projects at work. I've moved into a new role. We're in an upward movement with the podcast. So everything is going really well, which I'm really grateful for.
Right. At this point, it's just like, okay, I asked for it. I've received it.
Yeah.
Now maybe ask the universe to help me balance. It seems like it's giving horizon. You know what I mean? Lots on the horizon, lots to look forward to while still trying to maintain self-care, self-love, which we talk about.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm just showing up a little bit sleepy today. I definitely did not emotionally or physically prepare to be back at work. It was a little bit earlier than I had originally anticipated because of just lines of communication getting crossed. And that's okay.
Yes.
We adapt, we live, we thrive and survive. But we'll get back into the groove of it soon.
Yeah.
Starting classes up again, which was like the shortest summer of my life, but that's all right because I'll be done soon. And yeah, I think that we're coming into this episode maybe not so cheery, I suppose. Just because of the subject matter. I think we're showing up with
a certain level of respect. I think that I am wanting to hold a certain amount of reverence. Is that the right word? Reverence?
I think so, right?
For the subject matter. Yeah.
Like respect. Honor.
Yeah, respect.
Well, that's the cups today. Big fat overflowing cups.
When you start comparing yourself to other people, you start playing this mental game where it's no longer you against you, it's you against the rest of the world. Yeah. Hey, beautiful people. This is the Behind the Soul podcast, where we have real thought-provoking conversations exploring the relationship between beauty, self-care, and wellness. We are going more than skin deep as we navigate what it looks like to show up as the best version of yourself, on the good days, the bad days, and everything in between. Come along as we celebrate the season of life we're in and learn some valuable insights along the way, with stories that inspire, motivate, heal, and entertain. We're talking about it all. Tune in weekly for new episodes available on all podcast platforms. I'm a hydro hottie.
Period. Okay. A hydro hottie.
Yes.
Wow, the aunties are rolling. The aunties are clapping. A hydrating rolling hottie. Okay. Wow.
I think we should just get right into it. Initially, we weren't sure where to discuss this, but I think we should just get it out of the way about the whole dramas of it all. And then that way we can really, really give the subject matter the time it deserves.
Yeah. So, kind of like what I was saying before, if you don't know, like this series, well, what's considered a series? More than one?
Like 2 or more.
Oh, okay. Okay,
right?
So this is a series. There's 2.
Yeah.
It's a very beloved series. It has a very sensitive subject matter. People really love the book. People really love the characters. And there's like a cult following of this author. So when it was even announced that it was becoming a movie, I was skeptical. And then I saw that it was Justin Baldoni. And I was like, oh, thank God. Ooh, he can do it. Okay. I was like very, in many aspects, what made me so excited for the movie and maybe even want to see it was the fact that he was directing it and starring in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then when I learned that Hudson was also in it, it was just the icing on the cake.
Absolutely.
As somebody who loves the book, it kind of removed how nervous that I was around, because sometimes book to movie adaptations are not very great.
A lot of the times.
They can, they can be kind of dicey. So it's like, as a fan of a book or a series, it's like you kind of get a little nervous. Are they going to handle this with care?
Yeah. Are you going to do it right? Are you going to do it justice?
Which leads us right into what we first want to go into is Justin basically begged Colleen Hoover to do this movie. He wrote her a very heartfelt letter and was like, I want to tell this story. I need to bring awareness to this issue. Can you please give me the rights and trust me with directing this movie? And so she said, yes, absolutely. And so I think that regarding all of the dramas, we have been in the thick of it because I have been sending Danny so many TikToks.
We've been sending each other different TikToks based off of the conversations that we keep having about it.
Yes.
So it's like, first, it's before we saw the movie, we were learning about the drama, right? Because it's like press before the movie comes out, duh.
And sometimes that can be a tactic.
I thought it was.
Until we learned more.
Until we learned more. Until it continued after the movie was released. So I thought this whole idea of like them unfollowing him, not as a director, but as someone who played the villain, right? They're distancing themselves from the character, right? And so then we went to go see the film, which we'll get into and deep dive a little bit. But the TikToks just kept coming out, and it was more information that just continued to come out about how there were differences for creative control and how certain people got involved that initially weren't even part of the process.
Right. So I guess my initial question is, what is the drama? Because I guess we haven't spelled it out.
The drama is that Justin Baldoni is on his own separate press tour. That's the drama. Everyone from the cast, with the exception of Hassan, we checked, except for today, we haven't checked today, but everyone unfollowed Justin Baldoni, except for Hassan. So to me,
even Colleen,
pretty sure that's what the TikToks were
wow.
saying. I didn't really check Colleen's, but
right.
Yeah, pretty much. What it's looking is that there's two sides. So there are a lot of the cast members, most of the cast members, it seems, who are kind of rallying behind Blake, Colleen, and Ryan Reynolds, who we'll get into it.
Yeah.
But Justin seems to be the one talking about the subject matter in a way that I feel is very sensitive, appropriate, and important. And a lot of the girlies on TikTok are going back and forth about, did Justin slip into these characteristics of Ryle? And maybe he was not the easiest to work with on set. Again, this is like years in the making, right?
Yeah.
COVID, writer strike. I think it's been several years in the works. So to be around a group of people for that long.
Justin got sick for a while.
To be around a group of people for that long, you're going to see people evolve and change. Right. And you are probably going to see the screenplay evolve and change a lot as well. But I think if it starts to deter from what the book is about, which is, trigger warning, physical violence and physical abuse, then you have to sit everybody down and go back to the drawing board. Say, hey, I know it's been a while, but have we lost the true meaning of why we're doing this? What is the purpose?
That's the problem with it. It feels very disjointed. There's two different, there was somebody, I can link the TikTok in our description, was talking about it like, I've been a PR professional in the industry for 10 years, so I know what goes into campaigns when it goes for like movie and TV releases, and it just seems like there's two completely different PR strategies happening, and they can't agree, so they're just like, fine, we're going to do two separate ones. And we don't know these people personally, so we will never have 100% of the facts of what is actually going on, but I can tell you what it looks like.
Oh, for sure. And there were a couple of TikToks I sent you this morning, actually, of people who have worked directly with Justin Baldoni on several of his other movies. There's a misconception, we talked about this earlier, that it's his directorial debut. It is not. I think he's directed at least 2 other films prior to this.
Both of which have very sensitive subject matter. One, fibromyalgia?
I think so.
Or
somebody with a terminal illness, I believe.
That one, 6 feet apart?
5 feet apart or
5
6
feet apart? Yeah.
Some feet apart.
Yeah.
Maybe we're thinking 6 feet under.
Oh my God. Maybe, yeah. And also 6 feet because COVID. Oh. But yeah, something like that. The one that has Cole Sprouse in it.
I think it's 5 feet apart.
Okay.
There are people that have worked directly with him, PAs, producers, cast members that have already come out and vouched for him. They've already come out and said whatever blatant lies basically are being spread about Justin are just completely untrue. I can share this. I can share this email. I can share this message that he sent me. The person that you're seeing on the press tour that he's on is the genuine person that he is in real life. We're going to speak to this a little bit later, but he's like the only one wearing the No More Foundation ribbon.
Which is really strange.
Which is really strange.
If they're one of the sponsors of the movie.
Really strange choice.
Really weird. And yeah, so what I feel like it looks like is a marketing ploy for someone else's own gain, which is so tone deaf and off color.
Distasteful.
Regarding the message that this movie is trying to spread. Now, do I understand that this movie isn't just highlighting domestic violence and this book? I get it. Colleen wrote this book about her parents. It's not like directly based on their lives, but it is based off of her family. And so you would think that she would be very close to this issue. And so it just looks like Blake Lively, which I will just come out and say it, and Ryan Reynolds, they are both producers on the movie, or she is. I don't think that he is. And they put a lot of money into this. And so it kind of looks like I have to appease this person or this couple because they're putting a lot of money in it. They're big names. They're A-list celebrities. And I have to appease them because of the money aspect. And Blake is basically using it to promote her hairline and to promote Deadpool.
It's
and I'm
a
like,
commercial.
What does this have to do with hair or Deadpool?
Every time they talk about the movie, I feel like it's a commercial. There was a whole 10-minute ad on TikTok that was supposed to be an interview with the actor who played Atlas. Brandon? I'm making that up. Whatever his name is, I apologize.
Brendan. I don't remember his
I'm sorry
name.
to this man.
He's cute.
So cute. Whatever. So it was like this whole skit. Obviously, everyone's in on it, right? It's literally an ad. Instead of the person who's supposed to be interviewing the actor that plays Atlas, Ryan Reynolds shows up in the chair. And it's like this really interesting, supposed to be funny, but I didn't find it comical personally. About this is gonna be like the first time ever that you're being interviewed by the husband of your co-star, blah blah blah. It was just giving weird, strange, making something lighthearted that's not meant to be lighthearted.
Is there lightheartedness in the movie and in the book? Yes, but it's not a comedy. It's not a romantic comedy either.
No,
it's a drama.
Right. And I think we can speak to, which we will, romanticizing a character like Ryle. We can. But you can't take it to the level where it's like, oh, well, it's just not the only point. I think what they're trying to do, the Reynolds Lively camp, what they're trying to do is make it so that it's not the sole focus of the film. Like the abuse, the trauma is not the sole focus of the film, and that there's hope at the end of it and blah, blah, blah. But you are kind of missing the point, because it's like, while yes, those things can be true, I think that it's really what you said, tone deaf and insensitive to not acknowledge that not everyone is already a survivor. There are people that are still currently in their abusive situations and in their abusive relationships who might see this movie, and maybe it will be their wake-up call. Maybe it will help them to reach out and, you know, find support if they feel like they don't have it, you know, within their immediate circle. You can't speak to this subject matter as if everyone has already survived it.
Right.
It makes no sense. And it also speaks to the lack of knowledge and research that Blake did for the role. I'm sorry, I'll say it. I don't think that she is a very good actress. I don't think that she's multi-dimensional in the way that this character needed to be.
Yeah.
And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. As a fan, her casting was the only one that I was disappointed in. Because, first of all, let's just like address the elephant in the room, that in the books, Lily's like in her 20s. Has been out of college for a few years, working at like a corporate job that she doesn't like. So she's opening a flower shop. So I want to say she's somewhere between 23 and 26. Blake doesn't pass for that.
No.
Which is fine. She's like, is she in her early 40s or late 30s?
A beautiful 40-year-old.
Yeah, that's great. I would have loved in the movie, if they were changing that, I would have loved them to make it clear that they're in their 30s or 40s.
Yeah.
Because Justin and Blake, you know that they're not in their 20s. Also, what brain surgeon is in their late 20s or early 30s? That doesn't make any sense.
No.
Also, I don't really know any 23-year-olds opening a flower shop.
No.
But not this saying that you can't do it. And there are young entrepreneurs out there. But that maybe would have been a nice change from the book, is instead of it being this unrealistic expectation of what young people should be doing with their lives, it's like, well, they're actually in their 30s, 40s.
Yeah, maybe they did a lot of different stuff before this. And
right.
Maybe Lily found her calling, since she did always love flowers and always wanted to open a flower shop. She went through all of her 20s, and Blake could totally play early to mid 30s. That would have been completely believable in my mind.
Yeah.
But, and also a lot more believable, like stuck in a job, but also gave her the finances to open up her freaking shop.
Yeah.
Not 23 years old, like getting money from who knows where to like lease this space.
And in the book, she's not wealthy. In the book, she's struggling. That's why she's on the rooftop. She's like, I don't live here because I can't afford to live here.
Yeah. And I guess allegedly Ryan Reynolds rewrote the rooftop scene. Which I don't know how he had a seat at the writer's table. I'm just not sure.
Confusion.
I'm just not sure that I don't want to dismiss abuse in any way. Anyone, anywhere, anytime can be abused. Men, women, otherwise. But since this is a story specifically about a woman being physically abused before her marriage, during her marriage, thereafter, I don't think that many men needed a seat at the table for this specific situation. So I'm not really sure that Blake's husband,
I think that back to all of this with Justin's press tour is like, he's making it very known that I wanted this to be from the female gaze. I didn't want to insert my masculinity in this at all, but it kind of seems like Ryan did, because as somebody who read the book, I don't know if we stated this, I read the book, Danny has not read the book.
No.
I basically sent her the trailer and I said, okay, bitch, there's a trigger warning, but you're going to come see this movie with me.
So there have been really unfortunate stories. Actually, one of my coworkers just shared this with me today because of how it's being marketed. Blake said, bring your gal pals and wear your florals. Girly, what?
This isn't the Eras tour.
Yeah, she really thought that it was going to be like how Blake was describing it, and had no idea, did not read the book, had no idea that it had anything to do with abuse or anything. Obviously, the film does not have any trigger warnings because it's a book.
No.
And so she obviously became extremely upset in the theater because
and
she had no freaking clue.
They show it in the trailer. So it's like, if you watch the trailer, you know.
Yeah.
And that's going back to what this girl, the PR girl, is talking about, is we get it. Trauma doesn't sell. Telling somebody that you're going to watch a movie that's almost 2.5 hours long about abuse, what person who hasn't read the book is going to be like, yeah, sign me up for that?
Yeah.
So I think that they're selling this, hope, and this is about Lily and about Lily's journey, and she's not defined by her trauma. While you're not defined by your trauma, this book is specifically about what happens in her relationship with Ryle, which is abuse.
Yeah. You can't take hope in place of truth. So you can't say that, it's just so hopeful and there is life after this. I'm like, some people die. Some people don't have life after abuse, bitch. Sorry. Maybe I should tone it down. Sorry. That got hot and heavy.
It's true.
It's like, just
true.
You're not considering everybody's experience, and that is what's getting to me. It's like the more interviews I see with her, the more I want to throw my phone across the room. And it's making me more and more upset that the survivors and the current victims are not going to get their moment. It's like, I said this to her in the theater. First of all, we chose a 10 p.m. showing because we knew. We got 2 packs of tissues, y'all. 2 packs of tissues, and don't snitch on us, a whole bottle of wine, okay?
Right. And we'll get into more of the, we'll go, I guess, through kind of the story after we get through this drama part. But yeah, the point's over here, and Blake's over in fucking La La Land.
Literally. But my hair, did you see my hair? Looks good, huh?
Like my hair brand? The flowers. You see all the flowers everywhere?
Did you know my husband is Deadpool? So cool, huh?
While the book does offer a hope.
Yeah.
It really does. Because it's a movie, and because you're fitting an entire 300-400 page book into a 2-hour movie, you're missing some of those parts. Danny, as someone who didn't read the book, didn't realize that there was time that went in between her leaving Ryle and her seeing Atlas at the farmer's market. Years pass. Her daughter's like a full toddler when that happens.
They showed the baby in the swing who looked like she was still under 1 year old.
Yeah, so it's hard with books because you can't get everything from a book into a movie. And there is hope in this story. And a lot of that hope you explore in the next book, which is technically the prequel, but it also is the sequel.
First book. Yeah.
It's kind of both. It kind of jumps timelines.
Oh.
And you learn a lot more about Atlas in that book.
Okay.
there is a lot of hope in this story, which is why everybody, I think, gravitates towards it. It's a great book. I'm not sitting up here shitting on it. I read it for a reason, and I cried for a reason, and I was excited for this movie for a reason.
Right.
But yeah, I think that unfortunately, because she and Ryan are going at this for personal gain, it's really just ruining and diluting the book, and it's so sad as a fan, because all I wanted were some interviews with the cast talking about the story and diving into it and not being afraid to address, you know, the hard to palate moments, because even watching the trailer, I was like, ooh, this is going to be a tough watch.
Yeah, for sure. We knew going into it. We prepped and prepared. And so for them to minimize how intense a lot of the scenes were,
Very.
it feels kind of like a big middle finger to anyone who has survived, to anyone who is still currently a victim. It's giving I don't give a fuck.
It really is.
From them. And it makes me question Colleen Hoover's integrity. You wrote the book. This is supposed to be a personal, intimate story that you so lovingly shared with the world. And you're like, whatever, cash.
Yeah, I'm really not. I haven't seen enough interviews of Colleen, so I don't really know what her hand in this is. I also don't know, like, she's involved, but, like, when you sign over the rights to your book, how much involvement and say do you really have? That's something I'm not 100% on.
Yeah.
I know that she's, like, one of the screenwriters. There's this girl who's doing interviews that's saying, I was a screenwriter, and I wanted to take exactly what was in the book and put it on the script page. But because it's a book, it's so lengthy. And she's like, I was trying to cut it down in a way that still paid homage and respect to the original writing. And then Ryan Reynolds came in and cut it even more. So the scene on the rooftop, which is like, it's kind of an iconic scene in the book.
Okay.
It's how they meet. It's right at the beginning of the book. It introduces Ryle.
Also, so sorry to interject. He was smoking a cigarette, was he not?
Either a cigarette or a joint. It was really skinny. I thought it was a joint.
Oh, okay.
It was like really skinny.
Yeah, because I just don't know that a neurosurgeon would smoke cigarettes.
True. I have heard that there are a lot of health professionals that do smoke cigarettes, even after knowing the risks.
Huh. All right.
Yeah. You know how there's industry things? A lot of chefs do coke. Or a lot of people in the restaurant industry do coke.
Yeah. I know that a lot of them also smoke cigarettes as well. Or vape or...
Yeah. They'll sit up here and be like, do you have more than one drink of alcohol a week? But then they're smoking on their breaks. And you're like, huh?
Yeah.
You're telling me that, oh, whatever. I'm not going to get into the
sorry.
healthcare of it all,
I just realized that right now.
I don't remember if he does in the book or not. Whatever. I think that it was a joint. Because he's trying to relax. He had a very traumatic day. He basically had to watch a child die because they got shot in the brain.
No, that that was a story about his brother.
No, yes. But when he meets her on the rooftop, he's
that
like, I just
actually happened?
Yes.
To him.
He had an unsuccessful surgery because he basically, yes.
But it was the exact story of him and his brother.
Yes. That's why it was so traumatic for him.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought that he had relived it in some way, or
no,
his past traumas came up and he got upset, and that's why he went to the rooftop and kicked the chair.
No, I think from what it describes in the book, like he literally came from a surgery where he had to watch a child die because they got shot and he couldn't save them.
Got it.
Because that's the whole reason he went into, which okay, in the book they have a huge revelation moment where he tells her, like, this is why I'm a neurosurgeon, because I shot my brother.
Yeah.
In the book, which this does happen in the book too, it comes from his sister, who's played by Jenny Blake. His Alyssa is the character's name.
Jenny
but in the
Slate,
book,
sorry.
he does talk about it too. So they kind of cut that out, which is like fine. I think you can kind of put two and two together, I guess. But that's why he's a surgeon. Okay. That's why he went into that profession, because he like wanted to be able to save people because he couldn't save his brother.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so the whole scene is just so abrupt, which if you read the book, Ryle is the conflict is that he's very charming and charismatic and intelligent and profound, so that you know that he's not, and here's the thing, I don't like using the whole good person, bad person analogy, because it's like, I don't think anyone's 100% good or 100% bad, but you want to believe the best in him, because when you meet him, it's very much like how they depicted it in the movie. You meet somebody and it's like this whirlwind and you see past these red flags. She wrote it that way, so that in the beginning you're like, oh, he's such a great guy. And then everything happens and you're like, what?
Yeah.
But
almost like the audience was supposed to miss the signs too.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So the scene comes off just being very brash and abrupt when in the book it wasn't like that.
Okay.
He's a very straightforward character and lays a lot of things out. And I think he does tell her, I want to have sex with you or something of that nature, but it did not come off the way that it came off in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Which was just very, I've known you for literally 15 seconds and I want to fuck you.
Exactly.
Huh?
That's how it came off to me.
Which is very bro-y.
I think I audibly said, ew.
She did in the theater. I'm sure everyone around us was so sick of us because we were like...
Well, we weren't the only ones. There were some chatty Cathys around us too.
There really were. I was about ready to beat some ass in there.
It was during all the quiet parts.
Know the time, because it's like it's in a serious moment, like you don't start cracking jokes or talking really loudly. But anyway, yeah. So Ryan supposedly rewrote that scene, and so it just came off very from the male gaze. It came in exactly the way that Justin did not intend. So that's the dramas. I think that we've kind of covered everything with that.
Yeah. Plus, it's been now at this point when this episode is being released weeks later on, so other things may transpire.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily ever want to pick a side. The side that I'm on is tell the story that the book is trying to tell, and the side that I'm on is nobody cares about your hair care line when there are people who are still very much scared of their everyday life. And if this was supposed to be the catalyst to help someone get out of that situation or to inspire someone to reach out and get help, as scary as it may be, it just wasn't really done with any tastefulness or really consideration.
Right.
So that's it. That's the dramas.
The book is for women, and it's about breaking generational cycles, and it just feels like, one, it's horrible if you don't have any respect for women who are going through domestic abuse, but even on another larger scale that everyone can relate to who haven't gone through abuse. I haven't gone through abuse, but I can relate to the reality of there are things that my mom, my grandmother, my great-grandmother have gone through and things that have happened to them that I get to break. And I think that would have just, on top of bringing awareness to domestic abuse, I think that would have just been the cherry on top to really bring audiences and women in particular together, because you can really start to see yourself in Lily, even if you haven't experienced what Lily's experienced.
Very true.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to have gone through her exact life experience to be able to put yourself in her shoes, relate to it, or like you said, having experienced it secondhand or even third hand, because it's generational for a reason. That stuff is carried on. The burden continues on, and those things get passed down. They always make this analogy when they're talking about becoming pregnant and within just childbirth in general, especially if you are a woman having a woman. A woman is born with all the eggs she'll ever have in her whole life, right? So then you think of it that way. It's like, okay, so as soon as I started developing my sex organs when I was in my mom's womb, I had all the eggs, so she carried my daughter. Does that make sense? And so on and so forth. Like my grandma carried, and grandma's grandma, and all the nanas, right?
Yeah.
So you do carry on that trauma. All that stuff that happens to one physical body or one physical person does manifest itself in generations that continue on. So that's it for the dramas.
I did want to see how this drama affected the box office, because I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about it, and maybe I just haven't really been in the media's.
Fair enough.
And my algorithm is very specific to me, so I haven't seen a lot of it get a lot of media attention, but it has done really well despite all of this, which is like I was worried that it was going to hurt the movie's performance and ultimately hurt Justin as a director.
Yeah.
But 50 million US, 80 million worldwide.
Okay.
I don't know how it did compared to Deadpool versus Wolverine, but it beat out the new Minions movie and Borderlands, which I don't even know what that is, but it beat out some of the other movies that also released this weekend. So I would say that it is doing well despite all of this.
You know what it might be a detriment to is freaking Deadpool. People might boycott Ryan's movie because of it.
Right.
We'll see.
I get the whole strategy of wanting to make it more hopeful and uplifting to get more people to go, Because if you market something as dark and trauma filled, a lot of people are like, I don't know if I want to do that. I get that, but also there's a way to do that while still being tasteful and still being respectful. And I don't think that it has been handled that way.
No, not at all.
Yes. We were like, oh my gosh, we're going to get through this so quick. We'll just like quickly reference the drama. And here we are.
I know, because the drama is getting more and more every day.
Oh, yeah. We have the amount of TikToks we've been sending each other. And I did want to also say on the record that the women of the film have said that Justin made them uncomfortable. And I am always going to believe if someone says that they're uncomfortable, they were uncomfortable. And so I don't want to take away from that. Because I think there can be multiple truths at once. And if they were uncomfortable, they were uncomfortable. And I believe them on that front.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the way that this film is being marketed, perceived, and the way that Justin's being disrespected or silenced as a director is crazy.
Yeah, I think we're mostly speaking to the press tour itself. On-set behavior is a little bit harder to dissect. Yeah. So I'm obviously always on the same page. If someone tells me they felt uncomfortable or nervous or afraid or whatever the word is on set, then that was their feeling and it's 100% valid. And two things can be true at once, which he talked about in some of the interviews. He may have adopted some of those personality traits that were unbecoming of him as an actual human being. Yeah. But when you're trying to portray someone who's so intense and has to do unthinkable things, that's a pretty tough mental state to be in on top of directing the film. So I'm sure lots of lessons were learned. I'm sure lots of therapy will be had. And
maybe it's a cautionary tale that like when there is this dark of a character that you may not want to be the main, like you may not want to play the lead role and be the director. It's kind of hard to lead the film and set the tone while also being in a dark space with that character.
Yeah.
As much as I love Justin Baldoni, I really can't think of somebody else that I would have rather had play that role. It's dicey. I'm like asking myself, would he have had a different experience as a director if he wasn't?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I think if we rethought the casting altogether, and we picked maybe more up-and-coming actors, or we picked, like I said earlier, people who weren't so recognizable. Obviously, the person who played Atlas, he's more up-and-coming. Right. But for the two main characters, those are really recognizable faces. And for us, when we talked about, it was really hard to take the people away from the character. Yeah. It was hard to take the celebrity out of it.
That's a good segue to get into the movie. Right. It took me a good maybe 20 minutes to stop seeing Blake Lively. Yeah. And to start seeing just Lily, the character. Right. That was kind of hard for me. And I think that the rooftop scene lent itself to that. It just felt a little rushed, inauthentic, brash.
I definitely would have appreciated more ease. Yeah. Because if that is where they meet and that's where they have their first conversation, I think they owed it like a couple more minutes, a little bit more details, a little bit more sensitivity and intricacy. Instead of maybe making other scenes longer, cut down other scenes that are not necessarily as significant. A couple of the flower shop scenes probably could have got cut. You know what I mean? Like her clipping flowers, cutting flowers, setting it up. Take a couple minutes from each one so that, Ryle and Lily can have that moment.
Also, I'm like, it was already 2 hours and 15 minutes. Just make it 2.5.
You know what? Make it long. We know it's a book. Book to movie adaptations are very long. Hello, have any of us seen Harry Potter?
It was already long.
It was already long, girl.
Yeah. Oh, also what I think that it could have lent itself better for the movie, for somebody who hadn't read the book, is maybe setting up Lily's character a little bit more in the beginning. Maybe having a narration or something where like you get to know more of who she is and her character, because she's kind of she is very strong-willed and very independent in the movie, but she's also a little bit timid and inexperienced, and you don't get that from Blake's portrayal of Lily.
Because Blake is 40 and Lily is 23. So you're not going to bring that level of innocence and naivete.
Which I think is how she falls for Ryle and takes all of the gaslighting and breadcrumbing for so long, is because she was kind of inexperienced and naive and didn't quite know what was okay or not to accept. Which, I mean, she doesn't to an extent because she saw her mom go through it. But she like kind of had this like quiet, almost like arrogance of, well, that's never going to happen to me because I'm never going to expect it, which I think is really great to highlight, because I think a lot of women think that. They'll see somebody else and judge them and be like, oh, well, like if I was with him, I would leave. I would never accept that. And then they find themselves in a situation where they're accepting behavior that they may not have accepted because it's like it looks different coming from each person in different situations.
100% looks different from the outside.
Yeah.
Having not ever experienced it personally.
Yeah.
So it is easy per se to judge someone who has the way she judged her mom for probably a lot of her life for staying with her dad.
And you can see that in the beginning, like the judgment and the lack of patience that she has for her mom. Yeah. And lack of respect a little bit.
Right.
She always has to preface with, oh, my mom's crazy, so just ignore her.
Right. Or like when both of them were meeting the mom in the restaurant, she was like, prepare yourself or something.
Yeah.
Like such a bitchy thing to say, where it's like, I know not all moms are perfect, but because I didn't read the book and I didn't have any backstory other than the mom had her experience with her husband, it just came across as like really abrasive and like rude, especially to this person that she was dating who was just meeting the mom.
Yeah. I think that it goes back to, as women, sometimes we don't understand our mothers until we're in the boat that they were in. We're like, oh.
Yeah.
They always say you don't appreciate your mom until you become a mom, because then you just get it.
Yeah.
You know, it could be that kind of situation. I just think, is it the Blake of it all that's giving me a bad taste in my mouth? Was it that they've casted the wrong person as Lily? Or was it that it was kind of rushed, or they didn't set up her character well enough in the beginning that you didn't really know her true essence and character and why she acted the way she did?
I did appreciate the flashbacks and the mini Blake.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
They cloned her in the damn facility. I don't know where they got that girl.
Yeah.
But she studied Blake.
Yeah. For sure.
She was speaking like her. She had the mannerisms like her. I would have appreciated a narration from her because it would be a bit of a full circle moment. Yeah. Where it wasn't Blake narrating, but it was like younger Lily and, speak like almost as she could speak to older Lily.
There were some things that I had to explain to Danny because they just didn't explain it. They didn't explain her obsession with Ellen and why. She loved Ellen so much because Ellen was the one person that made her feel safe, and she didn't have any siblings, and her dad abused her mom, and so she just didn't feel safe in her home. So Ellen was her safe space, and that she would write in her journals, not Dear Diary, but Dear Ellen. Those were details that they didn't really tell you in the movie. That's the only thing
they showed. I thought Ellen was a real life friend. I thought she was writing a note to Ellen, and she was going to give it to her on the school bus. I thought Ellen was a friend of hers, not Ellen from the TV show Ellen.
Ellen DeGeneres.
And then they never showed her actually watching Ellen.
It's a really cute and heartwarming moment and theme throughout her and Atlas's friendship interrelationship.
Okay.
Because it always comes back up. Just keep swimming. They didn't reference that either because they loved watching Finding Nemo together. And so they would tell each other when they were in hard situations, like, just keep swimming. They didn't. So it's like But that was like the one part of the movie that really was like the most heartwarming to me was watching the younger Lily and the younger Atlas. Because I think that
they were sweet.
Besides leaving out some of those details, they did a really good job of really showing how much they truly cared for each other.
Yeah. I mean, as far as unpacking it that way, I guess, since we're not going chronological.
I know, we're kind of all over the place, but as usual, we always are.
And we're spaghetti. Is it possible to tactfully depict abuse?
Are we there already?
I mean, yeah, it's just the first topic.
Oh.
And it's an hour in, so.
Oh, that's true. I was just going to say quickly before we get into that.
Yeah.
That I think that everybody else besides Blake was casted perfectly.
Okay. Agreed.
I loved that Jenny Slate was Alyssa. I think she was the perfect Alyssa. Mm-hmm. I love that they put Hassan in there because it really does need some humor.
Yeah, it needed a little bit of a lift in some moments.
And talk about how excited were we that like two of our favorite brown men ever were in the same film. I was like, yes,
love that.
Let's
like,
go.
I need them to be real life besties if everyone comes out of this unscathed,
right?
And we don't learn that. you know, he was the worst person in the whole wide world, which would be devastating.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say of just the storyline in general and the characters?
I really like that Atlas was a chef.
I knew you would. I knew you would, bitch.
And I really liked that it was the second time going to the restaurant in which Lily did not want to go because she had a huge bruise under her eye.
And a huge fat crush on that man.
Exactly. In love. That she didn't find out that it was his place.
Yeah.
I love that little surprise because I think I got surprised with her.
Yes.
Because I was like, oh, I'm sorry, you're a restaurant? It's like not only was he the chef, he like owned the restaurant.
And I love seeing things like that through your eyes too, because like I knew that because of the books. But in the book, you have the same moment of at first you think he's just a waiter.
He's serving. He got out of the military. He's like, oh, I'm just like building up my coin. I'm back in. I like want to be in Boston, so I'm getting myself together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, the together has been gotten because the whole thing, and he made the list.
Yeah,
which is of course triggering in and of itself.
It's very sweet
when she makes her like magazine debut, and that turns into something completely different.
But yeah, all of that, the fluff of the movie, the sentimental moments were great, and actually overall great. The other things are just heavy, which is, now let's get into it.
Yeah. I think that regardless of the press tour,
yes,
it was a good movie. And I went into it having known some of the little dramas and already knowing what it was going to be about, and that it did require some trigger warnings. And so I went into it with little to no expectation, I think, which also helped me. But as far as the real meat and the depth and the intensity of which certain things happen in certain scenes, one of our questions that we wanted to explore was, is it even possible to tactfully or approach portraying abuse in a way that is not so abrasive or in your face, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I think that Justin honestly did a good job because you unfortunately have to show a little bit of it. Otherwise, you don't know. Especially with the scenes with her dad, the flashbacks. Yeah. You knew what was happening without them having to be real up close and personal with it. The same with when the dad abuses Atlas. I mean, it's very much more in detail in the book, which...
Right.
It's different when you're reading it because you can make your own pictures in your head and it's not as gory as seeing it on a screen. Yeah. Because in the book, it's like he beats him to a pulp with a baseball bat. So I'm glad that they didn't show that in the movie because it's traumatic.
Right. And they obviously never got the dad in trouble for assault or anything, right?
No, because he was the mayor of the town.
Right.
That's the whole thing. All of his abuse got covered up.
Right.
And so everybody at the funeral, everybody thinks that he's this great, amazing guy who has served his city for his entire life. And that's why she had that list and she couldn't fill out any good things to say about her own father. Right. Because the public perception of him was so different than who he actually was.
She was supposed to list 5 things that she loved about him per her mother's request. But I would say one of my top favorite 5 moments was when she left on his grave empty as hell years and years later, even after her daughter was born. Yeah. Because she held on to it, probably thinking eventually she might be able to fill it out. Like, maybe I can list a couple of things. Maybe I will learn more things and realize what I loved about my dad. But at the end of the day, her gut was correct and she trusted her intuition that was not a good man, that he was a troubled person very clearly, and got away with everything until he was in the grave, pretty much. So to ask her to do something like that was interesting because it's like the mom, I suppose, to Lily's defense, the mom kind of said, hey, why don't you share some things about your dad? Like, it was your husband. Why don't you share some things about your husband? You know what I mean? Why did Lily have to be the one to do the eulogy?
That is really true. I guess I never really thought of that.
A lot of the time, if your spouse passes away, if you're capable, if you're able, then you would say something.
Her mom is described as being very frail-minded. And I think that that's why Lily has a loss of respect for her, because her mom doesn't really have a lot of, from what it's portrayed, does not have a lot of self-respect or strength because she never stood up to her dad. And she never left when he was hurting her. Yeah. And she continued to put her daughter in an unsafe situation, even though he was never hurting Lily. But it hurts the way that you view relationships. Mm-hmm. It hurts your ability to show up in relationships with a secure attachment, because that's her first example of love.
Exactly.
And relationships.
Right.
So, yeah, I never really thought about why her mom didn't say anything. I think maybe because she was too upset. But I really do think that as far as those scenes, it was very tasteful and intentional. Mm-hmm. And even we can even get into some of the stuff with Ryle and Lily. I think that those moments it wasn't too much.
No,
I
they
knew exactly
felt,
what happened without them having to show it too much.
It felt choreographed, which I know was true because that's what you have to do on set. Yeah. And Justin spoke to his intimacy coordinator and like his stunt person and all these things that probably helped so that he could kind of remove himself, I guess, as a person from it, especially having to wear those two hats. Those are really two different hats to be wearing. It's like to be Ryle is to only consider yourself, right? The character. Ryle only ever considered himself. He made himself a frittata brunch. Come on.
For himself.
For himself. And Lily thought it was for what?
Just to celebrate them?
Just to celebrate them.
Or a nice thing that he was doing for her?
And then it ended up being a thing that she was apologizing for on the kitchen counter.
Yeah.
And then that was pretty much the first scene of actual them being hurt together as like an accident, which later on in the flashback we learned was absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah. He hits her.
How does it explain?
In a moment of frustration, because like he burns himself, or like the frittata she makes fire. A comment. She makes a comment and he like kind of backhands her.
Right. But the way that they showed it was that he was going to pull the casserole dish out of the oven with no mitts on. But before that's happening, she was like, oh, like I told you it was burning, like I told you.
Right.
And she was going to grab the mitt to give it to him so he could take it out of the oven. But it seems like he backhanded her just before he was about to do that, basically because of the comment that she made.
Yes.
But that, I guess, is not a question that I've asked you. Like, how does it explain the lead up to that moment? Does it explain Ryle's rage? Does it happen that quick where it's like they're having a moment on the kitchen counter and they're talking about the fucking mimosa and blah, 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 and then all of a sudden she's like knocked out on the kitchen floor?
Yeah, because it is written to be kind of like how Lily's experiencing it.
Okay.
Because you get love bombed. Mm-hmm. He was always so charming.
And fast, y'all.
And fast. And very quick. Fast.
And quick.
She moved into his apartment so quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just think the world of him. Her mom thought the world of him, you know? And it goes very fast, and that's the first time that you really see anything besides his, like, anger outbursts. But that's the first real thing that you see. You're like, oh, whoa. Mm-hmm. But it is, in the book, written as an accident.
Okay.
And Lily kind of has, we've talked about this on the podcast.
Oh, yes.
You question your reality.
Yeah.
Because they're saying, oh, it was an accident.
There's no way. Why would he do that? There's no way.
And the fact that she's having to apologize for everything. Mm-hmm. She's thinking that she's the problem, or she's causing an inconvenience in his life.
Yeah. And she was minimized in a lot of really subtle ways.
Yeah.
He minimized her a lot. As soon as they met, I felt my heart rate go up because I was almost just like anticipating the other shoe to drop. Basically, I didn't know how it was going to unfold. So I guess that was the most anxiety inducing part to me, is I didn't know how it was going to happen or when it was going to happen.
Yeah.
If it was going to be really intense or not. But because of the way that they do it from Lily's perception or idea of what's happening, that you are just forced to believe what Lily is believing, which is that all of it's an accident, you know, until later on. But I suppose, to get back to the question at hand, I think they did it well. I suppose it's hard to include tact and abuse in the same sentence.
Right.
However, if you are writing a book about it and it gets to the silver screen, you're kind of like, well, how do I do this in a way where it's not going to be so triggering and it's not going to be so violent? Because at some point you have to understand it's not necessary.
Right.
Things are nuanced. Things are understood.
Right.
I think the most intense, as far as like gore and violence is concerned was when they showed Atlas going into the ambulance, because his face was all bloody. But as far as Lily, she had, you know, a couple contusions, a bruise, until later on in the movie where she started to remember the truth. Right. And then they kind of, the flashbacks, which is, of course, we can speak to PTSD.
Even though they don't show anything, the assault scene where he basically like forces himself on her. That to me is one of the hardest parts to, it was the hardest part to read and the hardest part to watch.
Yeah. And it was like, I was just trying to figure out the whole time, it could not have been the first instance, because of how, which was later on in the movie, so it makes sense that it was depicted that way, how she was trying to get his attention almost as if he became a completely different person. Oh, goosies. When that was happening to her and when she was being assaulted.
He has, and this is another thing that's like, it was not well explained. He has rage blackouts. So he does. So there are a lot of times in the book where she has to basically wake him up out of the trance.
Yeah.
And coach him out of it. And the thing is, the prior times she was successful, you know?
Okay.
She has to reason with herself, well, I'm able to get him out of that dark place. Mm-hmm. I'm the only one who can. So then you place that personal responsibility.
Right.
Of, I can get him out of this place. I can save him. I can make him better.
Savior complex almost.
I can bring him out of the dark spot.
I'm the only person that can help him through the trauma.
Yeah.
And the depression of manslaughter, basically.
Right.
Having learned that he accidentally killed his brother when he was 6 years old to no fault of his own, you know? Yeah, that part was tough. And then, of course, we talked about this a little bit. But as far as exiting a situation like that, where I at first didn't really know how to feel about her running to Atlas.
And we do have to realize or put into perspective that this, while it's based on her family, is also still a fictional story. Right. And there is romance involved. While I don't think it's a rom-com, which is what Blake and Ryan are trying to brand it as, there is romance in the book. It is a romance book. And also it goes back to, I think that he really was her safe place. Mm-hmm. His mom got abused, which is why he has no tolerance for it. He knows that his dad was abusive and her dad abused him. Mm-hmm. So they went through a lot together as teenagers. Yeah. She doesn't have a lot of community, which is dangerous. Mm-hmm. And I know that not everyone can control that. You know, she wasn't from Boston. She didn't grow up there. She moved there for college and then stayed. Yeah. In the book, she references some like college friends, but she really only hangs out with Alyssa and Ryle. And so when you can't go to either of those people because Alyssa's his sister, you kind of have to find somebody else. So I'm glad that while that's not available to all women, which is sad, and while it might make it murky because he's kind of he is her first love and a love interest, it made it murky, but I think that it just made sense for the story.
Yeah, I had to kind of detach the story that they were lovers or had this very intimate relationship with one another emotionally and physically as teenagers, and more so that's her only friend that could have helped her through that situation. Yeah. And I think the fear, we can speak to a little bit about the fear that comes along with telling someone's family member about themselves or telling someone's family member about what it is that they're experiencing and how that's going to be received or just not received at all. She didn't know how Alyssa was going to react. Yeah. So her initial choice for safety, 100% safety, where she knew she could rely on it, it just had to be Atlas. She couldn't go to her mom.
She couldn't go to her mom. She can't go to her original apartment. He knows where that is. She can't be at her flower shop. He knows where that is. Right. She obviously can't go to his house. And Alyssa was his neighbor and sister.
Right. You're going to choose someone who's familiar to you. Right. And you're going to choose someone who basically vowed to protect you. And she always knew how he felt about her. So it's like, while I know that part's not necessarily realistic, when someone is escaping an abusive situation,
I think highlighting the fact that a lot of women don't have that, and that is why they stay. Because it's, well, where can I go? I'm not going to be safe anywhere. They're going to hunt me down wherever I go.
They're going to know exactly where I am. So what you just said actually is a question that Justin has been posing a lot on this press tour about how a lot of the time the question is, why do women stay with their abusers? But instead he negates that and provides the antithesis, which is, why do men harm? It's like women would never have to escape anything if they weren't being abused. They would never have to leave any type of situation if men had the resources available to them or were using those to heal from traumatic events themselves, preventing them from harming other people.
Right. And we talk about this a lot on the podcast, how men are conditioned and socialized to not work through their feelings. It sounds like Ryle was never put in therapy, and if he was, he probably stopped going. He wasn't going as an adult, so even if they got him therapy as a child, but he clearly did not get to a point where he was able to get a handle on his anger.
No.
And just the fact that men have more strength, and they use that to their advantage. I mean, we could go on all day about why men do the things that they do.
Right, exactly. Why any abuser would do anything that they do, for sure. There are, of course, many accounts of different types of people being abused, but speaking to this story specifically, and Justin's question, it's an important question to ask, because like we mentioned earlier, a lot of the time we can fall into this place of judgment of other women, of like, oh, I'm just so strong-willed and independent, and I would know the signs like before they even hit me, and I would know the red flags.
But Lily did. You know?
Yeah.
Lily grew up with them.
Exactly.
And she still fell for this man because it's not the victim's fault.
Right.
Because they tactfully, intentionally do all of these things to make you trust them. Then they warp your reality and they bring down your self-worth so that you think that you deserved it. Or they make you believe that it will never happen again, which was Ryle's way of dealing with things. Afterwards, he was always so apologetic and so nice and would do all these grand gestures for her, and it'll never happen again.
And it also really changes the situation when you're dealing with someone who seems to have unlimited financial resources as well.
He has a lot of power.
Yeah, lots of power. Let's go do this. Let's go here. Let's go to a nice fancy dinner. I'll buy you this. I'll buy you that. Just things to constantly keep you on your toes and guessing, or always minimizing what the situation actually is, which is why I don't really know how it went in the book as far as the flashback toward the end when she was in the hospital after he basically tried to bite her tattoo off. Is that what I'm understanding correctly?
Yeah. He tries to bite it off of her body because he can't stand seeing it anymore. Yeah. Another thing they don't explain, which now that we're talking through it, I'm like, wow, they didn't really explain this that well to somebody who didn't read the book. But she doesn't press charges and basically continues to protect him because of his job.
Yeah.
And that's always what it was. Oh, your hand. You have a surgery tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, I think that she feels this guilt because she's like, well, he is trying to help people. He's saving people's lives, and his career is his whole life, and this is his purpose for being on this earth.
Yeah.
This is the only thing keeping him tethered.
All the while trying to kill Lily.
Yeah.
So it's like he is able to basically let loose on her because he always has to keep it together and keep his mask on at work to maintain this outside perception idea of who Ryle the neurosurgeon is.
Like her dad.
Yeah. Instead of Ryle, which I guess we don't really have time today, but attracting people in your life that you are familiar with. So it's not necessarily that I'm ignoring the red flags or that I can't see them. It's just that level of familiarity that comes with a lot of the different behaviors, like the baking scene where she has to kick Atlas out because he almost gets caught because the dad comes home early. And the body language that little Lily had, where she didn't know what to do. She was kind of like gauging what the energy was going to be like, and she didn't really know what to do with her body, and she didn't know what to say to her dad. You know, it's those checks. It's like, okay, who am I going to get today? What type of emotional level are they going to be at? What do I need to do? How do I need to behave to make
Yeah.
sure that this person doesn't react a certain way when I say this or don't say this? Or what if I get in trouble for making cookies right now? You know, just you could tell that she was uneasy.
So she knew exactly how to deal with a person like Ryle.
Exactly.
She was conditioned.
Conditioning. So it's like if you don't unpack those things, which for the most part, it's, oh, well, that happened to my mom, so it doesn't really have that much to do with me. It's everything to do with you because you witnessed it. And not only did you witness it, there was nothing you could do about it. To feel helpless, to feel powerless, not able to stand up for your mom, who's also not standing up for herself or is incapable of doing so. It just speaks to like how things get suppressed. And Lily never processed through those things. I don't think she ever really processed how she almost lost Atlas because of her dad.
Yeah.
It makes sense that she could not think of one thing that she loved about her dad. He was on the verge of killing the very two people that she loved in her life. So meeting someone like Ryle was like, it's a shoo-in, you know? Lily was already predisposed.
Yes. And given the fact that he's having these rage blackouts, I think that it can be conscious and unconscious. Well, I don't think that unconsciously doing things like having a rage blackout justifies it. He was having these unconscious reactions to his jealousy and his possession. In the moment, he didn't know what he was doing. And so that too is, you're like, oh, well, he doesn't know. He doesn't mean to. How do you deal with that?
Right.
It's different from someone who's intentionally, I'm going to hurt you.
Right.
For power and control over, I don't have control over myself.
Yeah.
And that causes me to hurt you physically.
I think Justin tried his best to depict that when it was the magazine scene.
Yeah, that, ooh.
Because you could see the transition happen from the second he walked through the door. You could just automatically know that Lily's energy shifted because she knew exactly how he walked in the door already.
Yeah.
And then he held up the magazine and basically tried to pretend he was going to celebrate her, and instead made her read things that obviously were very uncomfortable for her to read aloud to him, because there was clearly a misunderstanding there. And she didn't even get 3 seconds to explain to him what that was. But obviously there was really tangible fear. She was extremely afraid for what was going to happen after that.
And you can feel it.
Yes.
Like you can almost feel her heart rate rising. You can feel her panic rising. You can feel her trying to diffuse.
She's trying to remain calm. She's not like trying to laugh it off.
Yeah.
Let's have dinner, cook dinner. It's going to be so cold.
It felt very like predator prey energy.
Yeah. And that makes sense why she put together such a nice dinner, because she already saw it earlier in the day.
Yeah.
So she was probably anticipating that reaction from the second she got the magazine until she got home.
Right.
You don't think that she read it when she was at the flower shop? Of course she read it, right? It's
I think so.
She read her section, and then she
I really
read
should have reread the book.
Atlas's section. That's why she closed the magazine so fast.
Yeah.
They make you believe, as the audience, Lily didn't have any predisposed ideas of what it said. But I think that she knew that she was at least mentioned, because Atlas had made it very clear that Lily was the inspiration behind a lot of different things. But I suppose trying to get back to the question is escaping a situation like that when it's so intense. I mean, it was straight up marital rape, and that's not even talked about at all, really. And so to see it on a big screen like that is like, oh God. There was really no way to process that other than to just cry along with her and try to get through it, right? Because it's just not really brought up as a problem, because you assume two consenting married adults are going to have sexual intercourse, and so how would it be that it could happen without the other party's consent? But it happens a lot. So I think the hospital scene was kind of a turning point for her, being able to have a safe place at Atlas's. Then later on accepting that eventually she was going to have to go to her mom's after finding out she was pregnant with Ryle's baby, and kind of figuring out who her support was after she had some time. Because then eventually she did go to Alyssa also.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to bring that up because we always highlight friendship on this podcast. And the importance of female friendships and being able to be authentic and vulnerable with your friends. like you said earlier, she had no idea how Alyssa was going to take it. Luckily, Alyssa, while she didn't know exactly how far or what he was capable of, she knew about his rage problems. Obviously, that's her brother. And I think that that was a really beautiful depiction of just the victim being believed for once with no questions asked.
Right.
She never said, well, are you sure it went down that way? It was like, without having to ask any other questions, she supported her friend
Right.
from the get-go.
Despite it being her brother.
And
She
so
very well
Lily-
could have been like, tough shit.
Right. So Lily never really had to be on the defensive or defend herself
Right.
because her friend was just there for her and listened to her and was like, I support you and I support this baby and we're going to do what we need to do.
What we gotta do.
And if that means that my brother can't be around, my brother can't be around.
Yeah. I think that his sister really understood him the most.
Yeah.
Having, I think, attempted to understand how traumatizing it was to have been the reason why their older brother was no longer there with them.
Yeah.
And the impact that had on his life. Clearly, it's like, sure, he made career decisions that were life altering and life changing, and he saved lives.
Right.
But he never processed the life that he couldn't save and the
Right.
life that he was the cause of losing. So it's very interesting because you see a lot of these men, Lily's dad and Ryle, in places of power, like we spoke to earlier, that seem to have everything all together in their career and their family, and really behind closed doors, they're just as traumatized as the rest of us. They just made different decisions to get them in different places in life, but
Yeah.
they've still not done any of the work necessary to become just better human beings.
Yeah. I
You know?
think I'm kicking myself now for not rereading it because I think that there was some neglect from the parents, and the parents were very much just pretend everything is okay. I think that they placed a lot of pressure on him, or
Okay.
we're going to just pretend that things didn't happen, but you go be a doctor.
Yeah.
And you go be successful and make all of this money, and that's what's going to make us proud.
Yeah. It's almost like overcompensating for the loss of their child, making their other child.
Yeah. In the book, the parents are just described as very cold, materialistic, typical privileged, rich
Yeah.
parents.
That explains Alyssa's outfits.
Right. But I think that Alyssa, seeing her family history and the men in her family, chose differently because
Oh, yeah.
the character of Marshall he's very goofy. He's very unserious.
Right.
He works in crypto. That's why he's so rich. And he's like
Oh.
basically a big child.
Yeah, that's what it feels like because he's walking around Boston in a onesie, which is great. We love that.
And
be
he's
your
very
authentic self.
Warm, heart of gold, golden retriever type of character.
Another great way to speak to how different traumas manifest differently. You know, it's like you can choose the total opposite and it'll skip a generation. We never really got insight on their babies together. Or it can be like Ryle, where you have this incredible profession, but it's all the internal stuff, the family trauma, the intergenerational trauma that we talked about with Nazreen completely catches up to you. And you have nowhere to go but inside.
Yeah. Then getting into, which I think made me the most emotional, you guys, we need to get something like Blubbering Bitches type of merch or something, because you guys,
So bad.
and lately, just over the last couple months, I've just been getting so emotional so quickly. It'll be on the drop of a dime. I'm like, I'm not even a mother. We went to Brittany's event yesterday and I was like, she started performing. I was like, oh my God, she's just so great. I'm like, why am I crying? But the part that made me the
shit.
most emotional is when she decided to make different choices for her daughter, which is, besides the domestic abuse, in my opinion, the entire point of the book and the series and the movement is making different choices so that it doesn't keep carrying on.
Yeah.
It ends with us.
Making the difficult choice. That was a very difficult choice for her to make, which we talked about a little bit after the movie, but how we weren't sure what Lily was going to decide, because while she was at her mom's and staying with her for an extended period of time and really not letting Ryle in at all or responding to him, she went no contact basically after having that conversation with her mom about why did you stay? And the mom had just a very simple answer. It wasn't even very detailed or anything. She was just like, it was easier to stay and I loved him. So for Lily, that could feel like I could look right into my future.
Right.
You know?
Because that was her reality too. It probably would have been easier. And she did love Ryle. There was never, I think the fact of there being a little bit of a love triangle it's like, well, you can obviously tell that she has more chemistry and understanding and care for Atlas. Overall compatibility, but let's just take Atlas out of it.
Right.
And if it was only Ryle,
Yeah.
that probably would have been the easiest choice, because she did love him, even though she loved Atlas too.
Especially when you bring a child into it and you just don't know what's going to be the safest choice, what's going to be the best choice, what's going to be the healthiest choice for you and your child, and now essentially your family that you created. They got married, albeit on a whim, yes, created a family, although it came out of a horrible situation. And we weren't really sure after he showed up at the mom's house and built the crib, and we were like, girl, I don't know. We didn't know what Lily was going to do. Yeah.
Ryle
they showed like a lot of phone calls and text messages, but
yeah,
that's really it.
In the book, he really tries a lot harder and a lot more frequently to get her back. I think that she knew, but that's when the choice was set in stone. Yeah. She had her baby, is holding Emmy in her arms, and is like, this stops with us.
Yeah. That, I had a lot of thoughts about that scene specifically, because he runs in there while she's already basically pushing. So it's like active labor girls. And, you know, she gives him the opportunity to meet his child. Fair enough. That's right. That's his baby. Offers up for him to hold her and really meet her. And I think what you said, she decides really in that moment, you know, after having given birth and really seeing her child and making the choice to name her after his late brother, which I thought was still very big of her, that it was a very, very intentional, specific choice that she said all the things that she said to him and made the choice that she did, and ultimately tells him that she wants a divorce while he's holding his child. Because it's like, it's tangible now. Do you see now that this is your child? She will grow up to be a young woman. And what will you say to her? What will you do? What will you say when this happens to her? What are you going to tell her?
Perspective for him. And it was a personal safety thing too, I think, because she knew that he wasn't going to hurt Emmy.
Right.
So if he's holding her while she's telling him this, in turn, he's not going to hurt her either. Because what is he going to do? Drop the baby to beat her?
Right. And in his place of work, no less.
And in his place of work.
She could have told him right after he built the crib, and who knows what would happen to Lily and the baby. You know, I think she knew. The audience didn't really have that much of a clue as far as watching the book, or watching the movie, excuse me. But Lily knew when she was going to make that choice.
Yeah, I feel like it was a combination of the conversation with her mom and having her. Because, you know, I think that it really does. I mean, I don't have a child, but I feel like from watching it and just from imagining what it would be like to bring a child into the world after having an abusive parent, and now they have an abusive parent.
There's no fucking way.
What's it going to do? Keep going and going? Do I put this on my daughter?
Right.
Do I make it now her responsibility to break the chain?
Right.
That's not fair.
No. So that brings us to the end of the film.
It does. And I think that because of how heavy it is, and because you can't really get into it that much, but Atlas is an amazing character, and it's like you are shown it in this movie and in this book, but you really go into the nitty-gritty of who he is in the next one. Okay. I think that it really is a great ending and a way to offer hope after such a heavy movie. Do I wish that they would have stated more plainly that more time had gone by? The seasons changing, show Emmy growing up, something. Do a little narration. I think that honestly, if I'm going to give Justin any tip, I think that there could have been some more narration throughout, because there really wasn't any.
Yeah, it would have provided some perspective and insight into the thoughts and feelings of some of the characters.
Yeah.
Even if it was brief, even if it was multiple characters, it would have been interesting to know the different perspectives and how they were all navigating the events that were going on.
Yeah. Overall, it is a really good movie. I hope that the drama of it all doesn't deter you from going and seeing it. And if you are a fellow fan of the book, let us know in the comments, either on YouTube or on Spotify or even on Instagram, how you felt that it was depicted. We do want to highlight No More. that helps victims of abuse. We'll put the link to their website in the description. If you or someone you know are struggling with domestic abuse or experiencing domestic abuse, please click the link, and sending you safety and sending you love and hoping that you are in a place where you can make other choices. And I hope that if not, you get sent a guardian angel.
Amen.
Yeah.
It's nomore.org.
Thank
I
you.
don't know that this has a quick exit button. I'm not seeing it. For safety purposes, you have to have an easy way out if you are looking up resources or information and the person that you're trying to escape from looks through your things or what have you, you know. There's that. I will link another one that I'm familiar with personally that does have a safe exit. Please keep in mind that not all domestic violence is physical. Domestic violence is actually a very big umbrella. It's certainly more than what was depicted in the film, and I guess what the attention was on, which is of course the physical part, because you are obviously never wanting to be the person who is in that boat of being harmed in any physical way. However, emotional, psychological, financial, all those are very invisible things that still have the same impact, if not worse, because they are invisible and you can't go to the hospital for those things.
Yeah.
Those things cannot really be documented as easily.
You can't get an examination.
You can't get an examination for someone withholding funds from you and, you know, making it so that you can't leave.
Right. Controlling you financially.
Controlling you financially, isolating you from the support that you do have, even if it is a small circle. You know, feeding ideas into your head psychologically, saying certain things that are emotional abuse. So
you
I
can't
would
really
encourage
prove that, unfortunately.
Right.
And I hope that our justice system makes strides to change that.
Yeah, so it's definitely what the film highlighted the most, I think, because it's very harmful, and obviously you do have a larger risk of that harm turning into something a lot more serious, which is what I alluded to earlier.
Right.
And that just needs to stop, period. But I also don't want to minimize the other forms of abuse, which are just as valid, just as hurtful, just as traumatic. So obviously very heavy episode. Tell us what you need for support. This subject matter can be a lot. It could be triggering for a lot of people. If you need to journal, if you need to take a break, if you need to go touch grass, if you need to rehydrate, take a nap,
do
color,
breathing exercises,
breathe,
yoga, moving it out of your body is usually pretty beneficial.
Put a song on, put like a upbeat song, move your hips, that's somatic.
I mean, Lily had something. She had Ellen, and she had Finding Nemo, you know? So we all find our things that kind of take us out of it.
Ellen, Finding Nemo, and flowers. Lily Blossom Bloom.
I know that was a choice.
Let's just get a little bit more literal with it.
I know. Not the author blaming it on the parents. You know what I mean? Like, you chose to name your character that.
Yeah, true.
You could have just left it at Lily Bloom.
Lily Bloom was enough.
You could have left it at just Lily. But Lily Bloom, I mean, the name of the
name
flower,
of the shop, I get it.
Lily Blooms is honestly so adorable.
It's good. It's supposed to be cutesy. The blossom took it overboard. Yeah. And it's all right.
Just our opinion.
Yeah.
But opinion. Thanks for listening. I don't think/know if there will be another movie, and if it is, it will probably not have Justin Baldoni in it or around it, which makes me sad. But yeah,
before we close out with a prayer, please remember to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Spotify now allows you to leave comments to interact with us, and please rate us 5 stars. If you want to be teacher's pet, leave a review, because that really helps us get found, and really it tells us what you want more of. Of course, socials, follow us on Instagram, Empaths Anonpod, and our YouTube, which we see you YouTube, Empaths Anonymous Podcast on YouTube.
Yes.
And with that, let us pray.
Spirit, grant me the serenity to make tough choices for myself and for the women that are going to follow me.
The courage to speak out.
And the wisdom to not clock a bitch with a hairline when she tries. The entire community. Thank you.
Not the entire community. It really is. Who here has felt personally victimized by Blake Lively? She's having a Regina George moment.
Honestly.
Where's the school bus when you need it? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I love me some Bridget, and I tolerate some Serena, but she's really tarnishing it. She's pushing it. Anyway.
Pushing me buttons. With that, we thank you so much for listening. This was a lot. And we send out positive vibes, good energies, and of course, as always, love, sensitivity, and empathy.
To everyone.
To everyone.
And
all
so
of
it
you.
is.
And so it is.
Bye.
And so it is. Bye.